Welcome to Eternal Journey, the podcast.
Greetings to all my knights and padawans out there. You are listening to Eternal Journey, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus and limited play. I'm your host, Jedi, and this is episode 90 of the podcast, where we are going to be doing our first impression show of Argent Depths 2.0 draft. But first things first, as usual, I want to welcome my good friends on the show. First off, we have Johnholio. How you doing, buddy?
I'm pretty dang good tonight, guys. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing great. Had a really fun Cranberry draft just now. And
sweet. Yeah, I saw it.
yeah, I enjoyed it. Probably be uploading it to a YouTube. I almost got the 7-1, went 6-3, but fair enough. Easy enough. I could at least fall back on the excuse that all three of my games lost to rare, so I'll just take that. That's it's the soapbox I'm going to die on. But or the hill I'm going to die on. There we go. All right. On the other side of the interwebs is another great friend of ours, Darth_Herman2. Alex, how you doing?
What's up, guys? Good to be here. Happy to hear your voices.
Same to you.
Sweet, sweet, sultry voices. All right, a little bit of housekeeping. First off, you can catch us live at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Except this week, because we have Worlds. So that's right. If you're listening to this podcast, check out Direwolf Digital's stream this weekend, because the Worlds top 16, right, John? It's top 16 this weekend?
Yeah, that sounds right.
You'll be seeing them.
It's all kind of confusing, but I think it is. Top 16 Saturday, and then top
8 Sunday?
4? Top 8? Top day 2.
Yeah. Maybe top Sunday. 4, and then they'll just do it to where you get to see all the games and stuff having some play simultaneously.
Worlds hype.
Yep. So a lot of money on the line, a lot of great players, a lot of cool decks. So check it out this weekend. So that means I will not be streaming. But of course, if you miss me and want to catch some more of the content, check it out on youtube.com/EternalJourney, where you can find all kinds of draft videos, constructive videos, budget stuff, tutorials, as well as the video version of this podcast. And then finally, shout outs. That's right. Get to show some love to some great people on the interwebs. So a little bit of love out there for the people that are supporting the show and subscribers. We have I'm So Bad coming with their 8-month prime time. Try and Kill Me, also 8-month prime time. That's insane. Extinction, our boy, guy that supports a ton of people in the streaming community. Great drafter himself, came in with a year today. That's super exciting. Scoomed, welcome to the Jedi Order. And Ulrich coming with a 3-month prime time as well. Thank you guys so much for the love. Really do appreciate it. And an ongoing thank you to all our great supporters out there in the internet. You are absolutely great. It's the reason why we do this show and why I continue pushing forward, despite sometimes throwing too high heaven on the on stream. It's a great time. Hopefully I am showing you what not to do when you're being your professional selves. But all right, that's it for the shout outs and the housekeeping, which means we go into our pack 1, pick 1. So this is the Eternal Draft Pack. I'll go over the cards, and I think this time we're back over to you, John. You're going to tell us what you are looking at first, but let me go ahead and break it down for our listeners. We have Scavenge, the 3 shadow slow spell. Play 3 1/1 rats that can't block. Gain either a fire or justice influence. Island's Favor is a 2 primal slow spell. You gain an Aegis. Draw a primal sigil from your deck. Neither of those cards very impressive first picks or even later. You want to take these very late in the pack. To match this Island's Favor is Roland's Favor is a 2 Justice slow spell. You gain 2 armor this time and go get to look for a Justice sigil. And wow, holy cow, I just realized there's all four favors in this pack.
4 out of 5. This is crazy.
I never even noticed that. That's so funny. All right, Caleb's Favor and Vara's Favor in the pack as well. So time is the only one that kind of misses here. You get yeah, wow, that's kind of funny. I really had no idea. Same thing. They all cost 2. They're all slow spell, and they all grab you a sigil. Caleb's Favor deals 2 damage. Vara's Favor deals 1 damage and has lifesteal. None of these cards you want to first pick. Next up, we have Ancient Manual. Yeah, depleted power with input. Just don't even worry about that. Grodov Evangel is a 2/2 for 2 double time with charge fate, gain a time influence. So of course we've played with these evangels before. Gives you influence of its respective color, so your opponent kind of knows it's coming, but still offers a pretty legit bonus to get to those heavy influence cards or triggers surge. Horn of Plenty is our last common, which is a 5-time relic. Your units have +1/+1. Going into the uncommons, we have Rock Slide is a 2 Skycrag fast spell. Deal 2 damage to an enemy or deal 1 damage to 2 enemies. So either, 2 damage to 1 or 1 damage to 2. So either way, paying 2 at fast speed to do 2 unless you have some kind of way to increase spell damage, which I don't think is in this format. We have Elaw's Choice, which is probably the worst choice ever. A slow spell for 2 Argent Port. You gain 3 armor, or each unit gets a -1/-1. Notice it is each unit, so yours units as well. Nahid's Distillation is a 7-time slow spell. Draw 3 cards, but you may exhaust a unit to play Nahid's Distillation for 2 less, i.e. 5. And finally, rounding off the pack at our rare is Accelerated Impact. This is a 2-time slow spell. Your units get +1/+1 this turn. They deal battle damage equal to their health this turn and can attack even if their attack is 0 or less. I.e., if you attack with a Siphon or Paladin, the Siphon or Paladin will become a 2/6, and then when it attacks, it will deal 6 damage because it is doing it off of its health. For the turn, remember it is a slow spell, so you can't use this as a combat trick. All right, John, what are you looking at in this pack and why?
If I think for pack one, pick one, it's between Grodov Evangel, Horn of Plenty, and Nahid's Distillation for me. I think those are all ×10 boosted. Correct me if I'm wrong. In the format right now, but those are all cards I'd be happy to play in my deck. Multiples of any of those actually, so happy to first pick any of those cards, and I think Nahid's Distillation takes the cake for me.
Yeah, solid. Draw 3 cards, never goes wrong, even at the discounted price, and sometimes can trigger also synergies with Machinist as well in the format. Alex, what about you?
I mean, I'm pretty much on the same page as John here. Probably be a Windmill Slam Nahids for me with this pack. Horn of Plenty is really good. They're kind of going around though. You'll probably see another one. And then I'm actually would be leaning towards the Rock Slide if those 2 cards weren't in the pack. But it'd be Nahids for me as well. Just a great card. It's splashable. It's always good.
Oh, and for the record, Jedi, there are some ways to boost spell damage in the format, but not, it's not like supported as like an archetype or anything. But
are they even weighted? Because none of them are coming to mind. What,
No.
the 2/6 +2 damage to all your spells guy? Is that in the format still?
That was the only guy I can think of.
there's like there's a legendary too. Like they exist.
Oh, got you. Is the
It's not a supported. Like I wouldn't take it expecting to
No.
get spell damage boost on this.
is the
Like Acidonis, I think, is in it.
Oh yeah, the dragon. No, wait, isn't that? No, it's not a campaign card. That's right. Is the Harrier in the format? The 3/3 flyer that gives all your
I
spells?
want to say it is.
It's just so different when you
I'm
see
not completely sure.
yeah, the weighted cards versus the not weighted. Now that they're all boosted ×10, it's ridiculous the difference that you see.
But it's been a supported like deck archetype in recent draft formats, but it's not here. So.
Gotcha. Oh, there's also the Stranger, right? The 1/4 Stranger, the one that attacks.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the most common way to do it.
Yeah, and it is a fast spell, so at least you get that kind of bonus. One thing I will mention.
Yeah, Rock Slide's good, even without spell damage.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing I will say is Accelerated Impact has a little bit of potential in, I think, more something like a Combre deck where you have Siphoner Paladins and Caravan Guards to kind of really have that big butt that you can swing with, just for an all-out tag type thing. But I still, I'm with you guys. Nahid's Distillation is a Windmill Slam. The card's just great. All right, that's our pack one, pick one. So easy enough. Hope someone enjoyed it and got something out of that. But that's going to take us into our main topic, which we're going to be pretty much giving you our first impressions of Argent Depths. There's probably going to be a lot of this that you guys have already heard or not too excited about because, let's be honest, due to COVID and other things going on, I feel like we've been in this format for quite a bit. They did change the packs around. They did change up the weighted cards and what's in it, so it does feel like a slightly different format, but you are still seeing a lot of the same cards. And so like I can understand that, but we are going to be talking about some things. So first off, I think we're going to go ahead and just talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, or the cards that are overperforming for us, the cards that are just okay, and then of course the cards that are underperforming, which is kind of interesting. And then we'll round it off talking about various archetypes and the ways that we approach the actual drafting process. So first off, let's start off with the good, the cards that have been overperforming. I'll kick this off first with Midnight Hunt. This card was already good, but I don't know if it's the lack of, I don't even know if it's the lack of interaction or what, but it just feels like if you're able to give your unit +3 in quick draw, or even +2 in quick draw, it makes it very difficult for your opponent to really block profitably to play around it. Maybe it's because there's a lot more aggressive decks where they have high attack, so it makes it more difficult. Man, I feel good when I have one of these in my hand. I feel horrible when I know my opponent has one in hand. I'm like, okay, how do I block this? This card has just been like, it was already, I feel like it was okay to good. And now I just feel like every time, and maybe it's just my experience with it, but every time I've seen it, it's just been a difficult card to play around on either side of the board. Where are you guys at on Midnight Hunt?
Right, Alex?
It's just the combat trick that lets you win combat. So it's pretty much always good as long as you can support it with the shadow part of it. And I'd have to say I'm putting it in more decks than I did in the previous format. So maybe that means it's overperforming, at least for me. But no, I think I agree with this as well.
Like, it isn't great on defense, and at the same time, it kind of still does work, right? It allows one of your units to trade up, and you're not essentially 2-for-1ing yourself because it's going to go back into your deck and then play it again, right? So, I don't know. Yeah, that card has just impressed me. John, do you have anything to add before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I've gone up on it as well. I think it might be because to me, Shadow ended up being more of a splash for me in most decks. So, I could never expect more than 2 or 3 Shadow pips. So my, Midnight Hunt was always kind of medium, right? So I think that was why it ended up getting cut for most of my decks, even with Shadow, until the update. And I've also been playing more of this card, and I've been playing more like Stone Scar in particular, and and that's where it really shines, right? Because of the high attack matters in that archetype. So no, I agree.
All right, moving right along, we have, to the surprise of no one, Trailmaker. This one, it's a go-to if you're in time. It's one of the benefits of being in time. This card is still just doing things. I find it very difficult to pass this if I'm in time because it's a 2-drop, which you already want. It ramps you, and there's some really good 4s here in the form of Vorlunk, Blur Haze Worm, and a couple other I'm drawing a blank on right now. But it also lets you kind of ramp in if you're running into, well, I guess it doesn't work with the 1/3. But the biggest thing is just the fact that the fixing, you getting it in pack 1 means that it's really safe pick because it opens up more doors to splashing. It opens more doors to you potentially taking those 4-cost influence cards or the champions, because of the fact that Trailmaker is going to early ramp you as well as fixing, and then late game help you get that 4th and 5th influence to turn on your champions or play those Smogwing Tinkers and things like that. It also, the fact that if you have surge cards, if you're Praxis, if you're Combre, you're able to trigger those influences to those surge triggers, right? So you're adding to the board, but you're also getting a little bit of benefit out of that. So I think this card has definitely impressed me, and I don't mind running them. I think it's great. The 1 health doesn't feel that bad, to be honest with you. I feel like if it was gonna die, it was gonna die anyways. People really aren't still running a bunch of Ruinous Burst, and I think that's really the only card that punishes you. I guess there is Amethyst Alkalite that does it. But yeah, I don't know. I think this card has been doing really great. John, let's try you first on this one. You got anything about Trailmaker?
Yeah. Switching the pack order and, coming out of pack 1 with 2 or 3 Trailmakers just means you can play anything you want, basically. So it opens up a new archetype, which we'll talk about archetypes later on. But it's like, a tried and true old favorite fun archetype for me in draft. So which is, time based, play whatever.
Yeah, and it combos really well with Acolyte as well. So between the two of them, you kind of are able to get everything you need. The cool thing about Trailmaker as well is because of the fact that it just gives you the influence. Downside to it is if they kill it, you lose the power. But the good side is that you don't necessarily have to run extra sigils in your deck to make that influence work. Alex, do you have anything to add before we move on?
Just pretty much always love this car. I kill it on side if I have the ability to do it on my opponent's side, and I think you can run almost as many of these guys as you can get your hands on. And like John said, it does lead you into time, which is really easy to play, the multicolor crazy decks, which I like to do. So yeah, it's just a great card. I don't think it's ever been anything but great for me.
Mm-hmm. Another one now that was good and is, I think, even better once again because of Surge is Barrel Through. Pay 2, fast speed, +2 or +3, +3. +3 is always just a great card. 2 is probably the most you want to pay for it, but I think the fact that here it offers fixing, but as well as surge triggers at fast speed is really where this card shines, because if you have multiple surge targets or even just one on the board, now you're able to change combat math and make it extremely difficult for your opponent, because you can, based on blocks, you can pump the surge unit and give it a +4/+4, or trigger another surge, whatever it may be. Typically it will be something like bludgeoner or official, giving it the +1/+1, but you also have the option of kind of doing that pursuit, kind of pumping 2 or 3 things at the same time. So you can actually play the +3/+3 on one unit, triggering the surge on the other unit, getting up, +3/+3 to one unit, +1/+1 to another one. It's good. And then of course, because of the fact that it's +3 to both stats, it works well on defense as well. Yeah, you would like the overwhelm from Omri's Choice, but I think this card is just overperforming right now because of that, and it definitely makes math difficult on either end. When you kind of are anticipating, or even not, it could be a blowout. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, just a great card. I love the fixing aspect of it. I have come across a couple times it being awkward in the fixing if it's like one of my 3 or 4 sources that I have for red or blue, and then I have to use it before I really want to get that power source or faction or whatever. But it's a great card, even if it's just a 3/3 for 2 fast speed. Can't really go wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. I agree. John, anything to add?
It's so cool having the fixing on Barrel Through matter like so much mid combat. Like I've kind of wanted this card to be, along with Argent Depths draft this whole time. So thanks.
But yeah, when you saw it in the packs, you're like, "Ooh, they added that! Yay!" Yeah, you were happy about that. I remember.
Yeah, I think it's also. I mean, it's playable. I think even in Expedition Constructed right now. So.
Yep. Sweet. All right, moving along. John, I think you added this one, which is the fact that the Windvoke cards are all pushed. All the Conjurings are. No surprise there. You can high roll or you can low roll. I've gotten some punters for sure. I think right now my record with time, I think I got the first watch, gain 6 life or 8 life or whatever. Eternity or not Eternity Core, Power Core. And then what was the unit? Like the 1/1 Innervator. I was just like, yeah, this is definitely a lose Voke. Or with Voke, probably with Voke. So John, go ahead and take this one away.
Yeah, they're these all the invoke cycle still in these draft packs. Take them early, take them often. I think I don't think my order of liking these has really changed at all. I don't know about you guys. Still just Justice best. Primal second best, and then the other 3 are kind of whatever. Like the fire one maybe is 3 now.
It's been overperforming for me, the fire one.
Yeah, the fire one's pretty good because there's a lot of go wide archetypes, including fire. So yeah, I think maybe that's the only one that's gone up even in pick order for me. But yeah, they're all still great.
Mm-hmm.
Invoking still wins games.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think both the fire and the shadow one have gone up, because the shadow one has gone up because of two things. One, Marsh Dragon, which we'll talk about in a minute, so that increases the health of your chances of higher health of your units in your void, as well as the fact that Stone Scar and I guess any shadow variant of decks has a sack sub theme to it, or can. So there's a higher chance of you having a decent sized unit in your void to make it better. So I think that's gone up. And then, yeah, like you just mentioned, the fact that fire has way more go wide options now makes the fire conjuring one better, because you're still looking for that rally effect. Plus you get the upside of the Windvoke. Alex, do you have anything to add on conjurings?
I mean, they're good early direction finders for your draft. You know, if you get a couple wind conjurings early, or I'm going justice.
Signposts.
Right. Pretty good. Feels pretty good when you have a couple Windvokes in your deck.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then Alex, you could start us off talking about the tokens, as you are a resident Splash Master.
Yeah, the tokens are overperforming for me anyways. They really facilitate splashes. They really help even in 2-color decks if you need to get to your 4th source. And they're very readily available. So yeah, I'm picking those up, not necessarily early, but often later in the packs. And yeah, they're really performing for me.
Yeah, I've actually started to take them over medium cards. If I'm looking and there's a medium pick, the interesting thing about this format is that we're going back to the age where we have an exorbitant amount of playables. And so it's more about cutting cards for your deck instead of trying to find playables. So typically now, and I've been very happy with it, if I ever come to the decision, especially in pack 1, where you're not 100% sure where you're going to be in pack 2 and 3, when I see a medium to low level card that I can take for my deck versus a token, I just take the token, because it, like you said, it opens up a lot more doors for you. John?
Yeah, I don't have really anything to add on the tokens. They do exactly what you guys said.
Yep, sweet. And then of note, of course, it's perfectly all right to take the tokens for 2 colors. I've ran them plenty of times because they still get your fixing, especially if you are trying to run those 3, 4, 5 influence cards in your deck. So yeah, those are the cards that are overperforming, cards that are probably doing better than they were last set, or just cards that were kind of medium that seem to do a lot more work. Next up, we're going to talk about the cards that are just okay, which is fine. They're good. Don't get me wrong. We're not saying that they're not. You're not windmill slamming them. Or actually, I don't even know. They're just good.
I think these were all. I think we all considered all of these cards we're about to talk about better just a few weeks ago in the last format. So I think that's why we're saying these got a downgrade, right?
Yeah, fair enough. All right, and then first off, starting off with Marsh Dragon. Marsh Dragon is good. The card is good. It gains you life late game. It's a pretty good flyer, and it facilitates some sack effects, etc., etc. It's an evasive unit. The cost is a little bit of an issue sometimes, right? It is a 5 cost, and if you don't have enough fodder in your void, you could just be paying 5 for a 3/2 or 3/1 and stuff like that. The card is good though. It just, now, do you want to run 6 of them in your deck? Probably not. I'd probably top off somewhere between 2 and 3 based on the kind of deck I have. But the card is great. It just, I don't know if it's just because there's more flyers, or if because Sapphire Dragon's pushed, or what. The card just doesn't seem as roadblocky / and maybe because of decay as well, right? Decay kind of chips away at it. So the card is good. It just doesn't feel as powerful as it did the first iteration of it. John, go ahead.
Yeah, you've said exactly what I was thinking. Both Decay and the push cards, including Sapphire Dragon, and then also 4/3 Elder, just laughs at laughs at this guy. You can't attack into that ever. And then even in Argent Depths, we have just 4/4s, right? The Smogwing Tinkers are pretty common, and things like that. So Marsh Dragon, it can be a good stabilizing play as long as you have reliable fodder, and against some opponents, you'll be able to push 3 damage a turn with these guys if you have a few in your deck. But some, there was prior formats where these just ruled the skies, and they just don't anymore.
Yeah, very well put. And then of course the removal as well, right? Snap, disappear, and cut ties are all pushed. So you're come across those as well.
Yeah, and you're going down a unit right when you play it. So even if you're gaining a bunch of life, if your opponent's board state is just that oppressive, it's not going to get you there. If they even if they snap it temporarily and then remove it some turns later, you're like eating away at your own board while they're doing all that. So
Yep. Alex, any I think John took care of it very well, but is there anything else you'd like to add about Marsh Dragon?
No, you guys hit the nail on the dragon there. You guys got it.
All right, I will send it back over to you about cut ties. Cut ties is good. It's great. It's clean removal. That being said, we also saw that in the form of disappear, though this is a lot easier to splash with only a single shadow influence. Sometimes, I mean, there is still false demise in the void and stuff, so sometimes you rather not kill things. I think it's great. Once again, these are not bad cards. These are just cards that might have not been as overpowered as they were in previous formats. I don't know if just the format's a little more aggressive and paying 6 is too much to take a turn off, right? It's sometimes a blowout and it's sometimes great. And then other times it's tough to take a whole turn to just kill something. So I think this card's good, but I think you want to top your deck off with about 2 of them in your deck. I think any more than that, and you run the risk of kind of getting clogged up in removal. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you where it's like it's still good. It's just gone down a little bit. I've had awkward situations where it's in my hand and there's a unit I need to get rid of, but I end up doing other things instead of playing that spell. I think it competes a lot with better removal spells that are pushed at, like Annihilate is ×10, and it does the same thing for you for 2, so it's just there's better removal options, so this one gets pushed out a little more than it usually does.
Nice. John?
Yeah, I think this one's relegated more to maybe like kind of more Xenon strategies or things like that, right? Where you have some 5-cost matters cards maybe that want this, as well as play things on opponent turn, synergies, and things like that. So other than that, like Alex said, it's kind of been pushed out as the removal you want for your deck in the format. And then, like you said, there's things like disappear as well, which is basically the same thing, but I think time, you're always going to have, there's at your fingertips, at least. Maybe you don't put them in your deck, but you can, time has all the ramp and all the fixing. So it's like pretty easy to just play that. And like that shuts off all the recursion, like you said, so it's just kind of better. Yeah, it's just so expensive. And some of the, more prevalent strategies in the format are these go wide strategies, and cut ties is basically a dead card against those decks. What are you gonna, you're getting rid of like a 1/1 or a 2/2, and they have 10 of them, so they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, moving on to our last one here is Siphoner Paladin. John, would you like to take point on Siphoner Paladin? Why this card is back to kind of medium versus Windmill Slam?
I think there's a few things going on here. One of them is like a lot of people are playing Horns with Plenty, so the average unit size has gone up, which makes 3/3 weapons, average ability to hit the target you want a little less likely. So I think when you're running Siphoner Paladins, you want some relic weapons that you can start with that make bigger with them, or a few of them, so you can kind of chain them or whatever. I don't think just a random Siphoner Paladin is as good as it once was. Like, I feel like they always had a target before, and I feel like they just don't always now, if it's just the 3/3 weapon. Does that make sense?
No,
so
yeah,
I think that's the reason why it's gone down a bit.
Yeah, no, and then once again, going back to, like you said, the go wide strategy, where you're still, you're gonna get one thing off the board, but then they still have 4 other things to attack around you with and whatnot. So I think there's
and then like the Stone Scar deck, for example, like I feel like a few weeks ago that deck was nothing but 5/2s and 6/3s and things like that, and now it feels like that deck has real units. So that deck doesn't just get owned by Siphoner Paladin anymore either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then plus like running the sack fodder for that guy is a little bit of a risk as well, because the unit quality is a little bit better. So you have the chance of just kind of getting run over. Though I do think Silence, let me go ahead and say that here before we move on. I do think in general Silence has gone up, just because I didn't have it in the show notes. I don't want to forget. I think the value of Silence has gone up in general. There's just a lot more things that you want, mainly flyers. That's the biggest thing, but I don't know. Yeah, like Silence just seems good, but in Forget and in Rectifier and even just sacking, sometimes having that unit, the clergy on the board, really kind of makes things adjust. I don't know if it's because of the collection of flyers and the collection of imbue targets, right, and things like that. But I don't know. I like Silence. I think Silence is definitely gone up in value for me in this format. Before we go to underperforming cards, what do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that it seems like just Armory in general, or like Argent Port, was where I would really like the Siphoner Paladin before, and it's not there. It doesn't materialize as much as it used to. So it's just, it's still good. It's just not as good slightly, and I can relate with what John said, because I've had to like just play it and like not have a target and just wait and hope to get a target, for the only 3 power that it does. So yeah, no, you guys described it well.
I will say this though, it's still just okay, because it does kill some things, and the 1/5 body I think is still relevant. I think it still blocks quite a lot. Okay,
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, underperforming cards. All right, let's start with Horn of Plenty. This card's still good, but it's not the overpoweredness that it used to be, where you wanted to slam as many as you could in your deck to a point. So, Alex, why don't you go ahead and take point on Horn of Plenty?
Like, yeah, I don't think I can place my finger on it really why it's not as good, except for maybe when it first was introduced to us, it was in a set that relics mattered a little bit more, and then that kind of got taken away from us. There's a little bit of that stuff, so you can't really synergize with that. So all it is just a boost for your team. So if your deck isn't really going to take advantage of that boost, it's kind of like it potentially be a dead card quite often. So yeah, it's been underperforming for me. I've considered even cutting it, and then I have fellow players and our friends tell me I'm crazy, so I keep it in the deck. But yeah, it's lost a lot of its luster for me.
I think part of it too is the fact that we had it in a format where, like you said, relics mattered, but also where twist was a little more prevalent. So getting an extra twist out of cards was extra value, versus now we're only seeing that out of ooze. And then to a lesser extent, decay as well just kind of mitigates. But I mean, let's just be honest, decay just mitigates a lot of things. So
Well, and another format where I feel like there was more corrupted units as well.
oh yeah.
Like there's still some, but those are all mechanics that shine with Horns of Plenty, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think all those formats also had like a big common time unit to go along with it that you wanted to be playing, and I don't think we have that really right now either.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing Omen Scar Worm for the draw effect.
Like Grodov's favored, and yeah, exactly. Like you don't care if that thing's a 9/9.
And then yeah, the Battle Mage making a 6/4 still feels pretty. It's not big enough.
Yeah, and then there's the whole issue of like the meta game, right? Like your average draft player is like smarter and smarter these days, I feel like, because I think there's just more entrenched players and things like that, and I think they just tend to pack cards that incidentally hate on relics because of things like that. So like I've played Horn of Plenty in a few decks since this new format shakeup, and I can't tell you the number of times I play it past the turn and it's immediately destroyed. Swirl of Sands, Furnace Mage, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Like people love to play cards like that, and they're great cards. So I mean, but people are even playing. You know, I can't think of the name, but the 2/2 Yeti for 3. I think
The Rune Crawler.
things like that. Yeah, Rune Crawler Yeti. Like, there's people playing even like, you know, just worse cards that hate on relics. So I think it's lost a lot of its luster.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always nice too to play develop your board while you're like resetting your opponent's turn as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, Furnace, like you said, Furnace Mage, Rune Crawler, Yeti are all definitely, you don't even have to play a card like Ruin anymore. There's just incidental artifact destruction, you know, that's just so good.
So like, I don't like it as much if you're just playing a bunch of units that are just lower statted, like on your way up the curve. I feel like you just get run over. I think there was formats where you could do that before. I think it's better now with evasive units, you know, and like your base units are already like solid, you know, things like Caravan Guard where they don't just, you know, they're not 2/1s for 3 that you need the horn to even be a real unit, right? So I feel like you have to have real units to go along with the horn now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I still like it, like with flyers.
Exactly.
Either to kill you faster or to make my flyers better than my opponent's flyers.
And it could still be good in a go wide. Exactly.
So like it's more of like a really good card in a niche deck, whereas it was a really good card in every deck before. But
exactly.
Yeah, it could still be really good. But overall, it's underperforming for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I probably would top off at 2 in my deck. Because yeah, I mean, it just is. It's still good and it's fine for running. We're not being like, why are you running this? This is insane. But it's definitely not the powerhouse it once was. And maybe that's our fault, right? Maybe people that are just picking up drafting in this format think it's just fine and that's it. But we're comparing it to previous experiences, which is fine. I mean, that's the fun part about limited, right? You can assess a card the best you can, but until you compare it to the rest of the format, you have no idea where it's going to sit.
I think like that specifically, what's super cool about Eternal is a card that was amazing. Now it's just like, you know, with what they do with the draft packs and stuff. That's really cool. I like that.
All right.
Yeah, I can't believe Horn of Plenty is underperforming like it is. Like, it's shocking to me, but it's true facts.
All right, and now whoever put this in here, I think is whack as heck because this card is still doing great things for me. I mean, I admit I probably don't want to jam 2 or 3 in my deck anymore. I think I'm good with 1.
That was my point with that. Before I'd want as many as
so you're the perpetrator? You're the one that threw it in the show notes?
I did put it in the show notes, and I knew it would get a rise out of you as well.
All right. Well, guys, for those listening, this is Siege Provisions. This is a 2-cost, 2 Justice relic that Spellcraft 1, give a unit invulnerable for the turn or immune to damage or whatever, and then pay 3 to give a unit +2/+2 and endurance until the end of turn. I think this card is a great way of pushing damage and a good way of upgrading your units or even making it a little more difficult for your opponent to do stuff and things. I will admit it's not a windmill slam. I'm not like, yes, we did it, but I still think this card is good. So go ahead, Alex. Go ahead and prove me wrong, bro.
Well, it's push. So if you want one, you're pretty much going to be able to get one. And it's just before where you would want. I think I had a deck even before that had 3 in there, which sounds crazy to me now, but it was probably good in that deck. And it's just, you mentioned earlier, there's like, we're looking for cards to cut. There's so many good playable cards that there's a lot of stuff that you can do with a lot of power later in the game instead of pumping my unit to get in. Like, I'd rather play my 6 or 7 cost spell before the, you know, piddling with my units to attack, you know. So it's just not as good as it used to be, at least for me. So I mean, I think you said you'd rather only have 1 now instead of multiples. So even for you, it's underperforming a little bit, but I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, there's, like you said, there's just so much stuff to do with your power now in these games and these decks that it versus before you had excess power, so you could sit here and activate 2 of them a turn. But I do like the fact that it gives you a late game power sink as well as a way to get in additional damage if you have evasive units that leave bad blockers, and it just upgrades your units, right? You could do something now with those 2 and 3 drops that are just kind of sitting there. But I don't know, John, what do you think? Where do you sit at on Siege Provisions?
Yeah, I agree. It's underperforming for me as well. Like based on my expectations with it, it's very similar to Horn of Plenty from prior formats, right? Um, I've played it a few times and it has exactly underperformed. I'm like, this is not really doing anything for me. And then it has like anti synergy in the format with a lot of things that Justice wants to be doing, which is
Imbue. Oh,
imbue. Yeah,
Oh, all right,
it,
fair.
you can kind of work it in a positive way if you have specifically the Greenstone officer, right? Because that lets you like re-imbue. It lets you like bust an imbue that is no longer favorable. But that's like a very specific interaction. But yeah, it's
I've
it,
done so
and I
many head smacks over the imbue thing. I'm like, oh, right,
right. No, and I agree with just I think you're right about the just all relics kind of suffering a bit from the lack of actual relic synergy, right? I think that's a thing too. And like Jedi said also just it's competing with I think just more cards that you just want to put in your deck more. So all those reasons these are underperforming for me as well. Yeah.
There's like I've been blown out. There's so much fast removal, so you spend the power to pump to get in, and then annihilate. It's like okay, I just paid more power to get blown out, and I don't
Yeah.
know.
Nope. All right, yeah,
That's the
the
thing.
the imbue thing. All right, you sold me because both Huru and Combre want to imbue things. So all right, fair. You got me. All right, all right. Siege Provisions, you're underperforming. So there you go.
But you're still a good card, or can be, but you're underperforming. You are.
I think you probably messed up somewhere in your draft if you're like playing two of these in your deck at the end unless you have some very specific reason.
All right, that does it. Are there any specific cards, any specific cards you guys want to touch on before we go to the broader strokes, archetypes, and drafts?
No, I think we touched on the ones I had in mind. Actually, good list, guys.
Alex?
Yeah, those are the ones that were jumping out at me. I'm sure there's a card that I'll be like, oh, I wish you would have mentioned that, but we could always say it next week or whatever.
All right, sweet. Okay, archetypes. Nothing much going on here. Just a quick overview about stuff. Like obviously you gotta. I still think you need to. I'm not sure. I admit. I know Tyler Cheney did draft force a lot of monofaction decks, which I didn't really kind of pick up how they played out, to be honest with you. Plus he's a good player, but a couple of things. Stone Scar, I've had a lot of success with Stone Scar. I think it's a very aggressive, both in the just pushing aggressive unit strategy as well as the go wide. It works out both ways, still capitalizes on things like Midnight Hunt, Annihilate, and Grizzly Contest. I think all do great things, and you could really get ahead on the board. If you're a little heavier onto fire, you can pick up those daggers to give you extra units that attack and go wide, and we already talked about how Fire Conjuring has definitely worked out well. I like this. Pretty much you're kind of picking up your aggressive 2-drops. I think impacts one, like the Evangels, and Grenadin Drone is a good one, right? Gives you 2 units for the price of 1. And then, of course, you still have access to, I think, one of the strongest combos, which is Might Weaver and Battle Driver. And you actually have a higher chance of getting this because I think people now, instead of picking up the Might Weavers and the Battle Drivers in pack 1, they could easily not be in those colors in pack 2 and decide to pass them over. So I've seen a pretty late Might Weaver go by and Battle Drivers, to be honest, to as late as like pick 4 and 5. Which I think
I've seen it too.
Yeah, which I think is a little crazy because they're both 1 influence, so they're still splashable. I think Mike Weaver definitely took a hit in this format because we have a lot less 5 attack units. So there's that. But I still think Battle Driver is great, especially because of the fact that go wide strategies are in it. John, go ahead, since you said, do you have anything to add about Stone Scar?
I really like Stone Scar now. I was never really into this in the last Argent Depths formats, but I just think they give you more just kind of units I would play in just any deck now for both Fire and Shadow in the draft packs. So like they actually, and like some rares in those factions are 10 times boosted and are really good, like Tattoo Dragon and things like that. So I'm like basically like with the whole pack order swap, it's just kind of opened my mind up to these factions a little more. And like you said, the payoffs are like coming late in Argent Depths packs, like the Might Weaver and Battle Driver. I've never had a Stone Scar deck with both of those cards, and Spirit Weaver as well. Like, and since the pack order changes, I've had Stone Scar decks featuring all three of those cards. Like, and that is like just juicy. It's super good. But like, yeah, like you said, you can come out of pack one with cards in those colors, and you don't even have to be like the go wide deck or the 5 power deck. You can just have good cards coming out of that pack and still be flexible. I like it a lot more now. I've had a lot more 7-win decks in Stone Scar since the pack swaps.
Mm-hmm. Alex.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to a Combust first pick.
Yeah, Combust as well.
How much I like Stone Scar right now, I pretty much agree with John. You get all the amazing pushed removal. Sear is pushed, Annihilate, Defile, Cut Ties is even still pushed, I believe. It's just, you can just, play like 5 units, kill all your opponent's things, and win still. It's just, I don't know. I like it a lot. And
both of your Evangels are just good units too.
Yeah, very good call. Yeah.
And you get the removal on a stick. The fire, the 4/3 guy is just great.
Mm-hmm. And then you have also go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the one card you mentioned that really brings the whole strat together is the Battle Driver, though. The one really, like, the big missing card for that, like you mentioned, the 5 health units are no longer boosted, but I think Rampage was also a big deal for that deck before.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen a Rampage in weeks now.
Yeah,
since the format change. Right?
Yeah, and once they took it off of ×10, like, it's a huge difference now for sure.
Yeah, so you no longer have combat tricks to push, surprise damage so much in this deck. It's more like relying on Battle Driver and effects like that, Toto Pioneer as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, next up we have Huru, an old favorite of mine. I think is still great. It's just comboing off with, big blockers on the ground and then evasive units to get through damage in the air. You still get access to Barrel Through that we talked about, as well as the Valiant Leap, which is the only deck that wants it. So that's great. If you're in the right spot, you're going to get it. As long as they're in the packs, you have a high chance of getting this card, which is great on offense and defense. You still have access to Ursine as well. The cool thing about going Huru is that you can kind of pick up some of your win cons early. You can get access to Lightning Strikes in packs 1 and 4, but then you also have Sapphire Drake, and then 4th Tree Elder, which we all know is the 4/6 flying endurance bomb in limited uncommon. So you can pick those up in pack 1, and then pack 2 and 3 just kind of rounds off your decks with the Caravan Guards, the Siphoner Paladins, and the Valiant Leaps and stuff like that. And you still have access to Smogwing Tinker as well. So I think this deck is still great. Flyers are solid. I don't know. John, actually, do you have anything to add about Huru?
No, I don't think anything has really changed for me with Huru other than like 4th Tree Elders. so I guess maybe sometimes I'm not playing as many Smogwings now because I have 4th Tree Elders, I guess, but I think the strategy is basically the same as it was, and the deck basically feels the same, so still good.
You stole what I was going to say. It was like the one that feels the most similar to
right?
Before the set change. To me, it's like the most familiar deck. All the other ones seem a little bit different, but this one kind of just has the same game plan, and it's a good game plan. I still love this deck.
Yeah, it's solid, very solid. Nothing big to go on. The biggest thing there is just the fact that you can pick up some of your solid cards in pack 1, where most of the other decks you're just kind of picking your filler and then seeing what happens in packs 2 and 3, which we'll talk about when we do the overview of drafting.
It does have a lot of 6 drops though, like John said. The 4th Tree Elders fighting with the Tinkers
and the Drakes. So, they're all,
and the Drakes. Jedi mentioned as well. So Huru specifically, you're just overloaded at the 6th slot.
Yeah, and then and of note, you get Brood of Aramot as well, which I'm not sure if that card's weighted or not. I don't remember now, but you get Brood of Aramot as well. So another solid evasive flyer, as well as The Wivark. What's the name of the Wivark with Killer now? Do you guys remember?
Skycrag Wyvern.
There you go. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Cool.
Yeah, that's like I like that in with time, but it's just competing with so many other 3/3 flyers in Primal and General.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. It's interesting to say the least. But all right, mono factions. At the beginning of the format, I was able to go a little heavier on mono faction. I think there are a couple times I will admit where I end up trimming down and doing a very light splash on a second color is what I end up doing more often than not, just because it's hard. You really have to have the packs agree with you. I've had that happen as well, where I'm like, oh, I guess they're cutting this color, and then I'll get, a Smogwing Tinker pick 9, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess Justice just wasn't in the pack or whatnot. But yeah, I think mono factions are still supported. You still get access to Prism Golems. The cool thing is that now, because you're seeing Prism Golems packs 2 and 3, you have a higher chance of running them in your deck, because you at least have about a pack and a half worth of information, so you know whether you're going to go down that road or not. I think Justice is still, there's Mantle flowing around the deck. I had today, had Mantle. I'm not sure, there's benefits. I think Dagger, probably Corrosive Dagger, is the biggest payoff for being a mono faction deck. I can't think of anything from the other colors. They're really kind of uber rewards. Oh, Justice, you can attack with your Caravan Guards, I guess, sooner. And then
I think the biggest payoff is just deck, consistency.
Yeah, true story. Yeah. Good point. Yeah, very good point.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. What's your? Let's send it over to you first, Alex. What's your experiences with mono factions? I think it's doable, but I think it's also difficult if you're in time, because you have access to so much fixing. You're like, why go mono faction? So I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I haven't tried mono faction in this new. I've tried heavy faction, and the faction I've tried to go heavy with on the payoffs the most is red. With I think I had 3 Corrosive Daggers in a deck with a few go wide payoffs, and a lot of sacrifice things. I was a Stone Scar deck, but I haven't succeeded at a mono faction deck. But that doesn't, a deck can be mostly red with, or mostly time with something else, and it's not really a mono deck, but it kind of plays out like one. And then the Prism Golem is just, a 5/5 for 3 is just gonna win a lot of draft games, and you can get them late now because a lot of people know in that second pack if they're mono or not, and a 3/3 for 3, that's going to make most decks as well. But it's not like I need to slam to pick that, So I have had decks with multiple Prism Golems and mostly one color, and then I try to play it as a 5/5 for as long as I can until I absolutely need my second color. So that's always something you could do.
Mm-hmm. John, sending it over to you. What do you think about mono faction?
They're not really my style either, I guess. But I think they're maybe more viable than ever. Like if you find that a faction is just so open in your first pack, right, and you just have so many good cards in it, and pack 4 is gonna be full of them as well. And let's say you also end up, in pack 2 with a Prism Golem or 2 right off the bat, right? So it's an even bigger incentive than just consistency to play a mono faction deck. I think you like those packs 2 and 3, even if the faction that you're trying to force isn't open, the cards in Argent Depths packs are just, generally so high quality for commons and uncommons, and just go along with the mono colored strategies in general, that you're just going to end up with a reasonable deck either way. So I think it's, if you're looking to force one for whatever reason, I think you're gonna probably end up with a better deck than you would have a few weeks ago on average.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely, I think pack 2 is where you decide on whether you're gonna go mono faction or not, because I think it's difficult, even if a certain color is completely open pack 1 and 4, if you're not seeing a decent amount of that in packs 2 and 3, then it's gonna be tough to go. But yeah, I'm with Alex on this, where I've been completely fine running the majority of one faction and then somewhere between 2 to 6 cards of another faction to make it work. But the flip side to this is the fact that because there is so much fixing in tokens and interloper and all the time fixing, that you can essentially go time-based deck and then play in the notes you guys have whatever rares you open, which is fair. I think you can probably go 3 faction if you're base time with a decent amount of fixing, because there is the incidental fixing. We have those spell cards that give you influence of 2 other factions. We have the card. Well, I guess we have the cards from Argent Depths that does that, as well as the cards in the Eternal draft packs that do that. And then once again, Interloper, Seek Power is pushed. We have Petition as well to grab you symbols. So now you can even essentially play 2 faction or double influence splashes. So I think it's there, but you definitely want to have a conservative mindset when you're looking at this and make sure that the juice is worth the squeeze, because it's very easy to be like, oh, I have the fixing for it, let me play these cards, and then realize that the level of inconsistency you're adding to your deck isn't worth the power of the cards that you're trying to play. But it is there. I've played against and played with 3 faction decks that have gone 7-0 for sure, especially if you play some powerful cards. And once again, the fact that you have access to symbols, if you take these aggressively, it's a little easier to play those double factions because of the fact that you have 2 influence in 1 card. Let's start off with you, Alex. I feel like I'm sending it to you a lot today, but you have a lot of 5 color and 4 color backup. So where are you at when it comes to time-based, play all the colors?
Yeah, that's time. We talked about it early. Trailmaker. I'm horrible with names, but the relic that turns into the giant that lets you get power out of your deck is
Waystone Gate.
Waystone Gate is very much around again, and specifically those 2 cards in time that really help you push out into other colors. And then, I mean, the Waystone Gate on top of that is just giving you a game ender unit on top of that.
Well, I don't believe it's pushed though, right? It's not weighted.
Is it not? I swear, everyone has one. Then
I think it might be.
Oh, then I guess shoot, I haven't seen one in a bunch of drafts. I'll look it up. Go ahead and keep talking. I'll look it up.
I was seeing them a lot as well.
Oh, really? So I guess I've just been kind of lucky.
I'm seeing a lot. But yeah, that's like my style of deck. I like playing more colors, so that's like the pack 1 is already giving me a bunch of cards. It's gonna lead me away from playing a mono faction deck. That's why I've not really fallen into that, like here's all this fixing with I'm gonna make more than 1 color for sure deck. But yeah, time is always the color that lets you push in other colors. So yeah, I'm on board.
John, sending it over to you, buddy. Where are you at?
I both love and hate this being a deck in the format again, because anytime my draft is kind of going medium, I'm always going to end up in this, and my deck's going to be medium. But I'll enjoy it, so it's fine. But I think Alex talked about it pretty well. As far as like a reason to be in this is not just a couple powerful rares in different factions, but the Trailmakers and the Waystone Gates, and to a lesser extent Amber Acolyte as well, and Seek Powers and things like that, right? I think you just got to ask yourself, when you're getting greedy, like with decks like this, like, do you actually have the fixing? Like, if you want to be successful, you really can't just force this kind of stuff, or you're just going to be rolling the dice with every single game.
Do you have the fixing, or it's like, do you really have the payoffs? Like, what are you?
Yeah, both questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
so yeah, I love it though. Like when it comes together, this is all, I have so much fun when I'm like, just my opponent has no idea what crazy card I'm going to play next, because all colors.
Yeah,
I could play all my mediocre cards. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a trap. It's a safe pick too, right? It's just too easy to like, well, we don't know where we're going to be in, so we'll just take the time fixing and see where we end up. Like I said, I even mentioned it earlier in the show. I'm taking tokens a little bit higher than I would, just to kind of keep my options open. But you still have to have the discipline to be like, okay, we have 3 colors, but I definitely think we're a 2-color deck. And the other side too is that realize that, much like what you guys were talking about, you could have the fixing, but is it good enough? I think once you go into 3 colors, even if it's a light splash, you have to pretty much write off the 4 influence cards in packs, in the Argent Depths packs, because even today, right, I played a Combre deck which was just straight Combre with a ton of fixing, and there were still some games where I didn't have 4 influence of one of the colors I needed, whether it was I had 6 justice and 3 time and I had the disappear in my hand, or the other way around. So I definitely think there is a cost. Keep that in mind. So I think you have to have the discipline to understand that. I know Tyler had mentioned that in Farming Eternal recently as well, that when you have so many playables, you definitely have to make sure you're not getting too greedy with your deck construction, or the variance will get you later on. And then sometimes you take all the time fixing and realize time's not really what's open. And I've done that before, where the first couple of picks are time cards, but then I'm seeing those, 4th Tree Elders or just the more powerful cards later, where I'm like, you know what? I actually don't think I'm anywhere near time. I think I'm actually going to end up in Rakano or something like that. And gosh darn it, John, now I can't remember the last time I said Rakano. You've got me stuck on the Rakano. I think that's my default now.
I'm right there with you.
That's pretty much it. We kind of already dabbled on the methods of drafting while we were talking about this archetypes. I don't know if you guys want to add any more. Pretty much, I'm all across the board in pack 1, to be completely honest with you. If a color is open, I try to stay to a color. Maybe once again, the default first 4 or 5 picks, I pick the best card, and then towards the end of the pack start to lock in a color. That being said, if I do take early time fixing, then I'm just kind of stay open the entire pack, and just, you guys have heard me say it on stream, I'm like, okay, we'll let pack 2 decide what colors we're in. It's tough, because I actually had someone on stream today ask me, what do you think are the signposts for this? And it's hard. There's a few, but not many, because you really just don't know. There's just so much going on in these packs, which I think is exciting. You kind of can force some things like we talked about, but yeah, I'm pretty much just let the packs decide, man. That's the easy and short answer, but that's the truth. I let the packs, if one color is flowing heavily in pack 1, then I'll try to lock in that color, hopefully keeping it going into pack 2. But if not, then I just try to stay open, taking fixing aggressively, and let that pack 2 justify it. Very rarely here, I think maybe I can count only 2 times did I not have a deck locked in at the end of pack 2, and then going into pack 3 is where I kind of finish things off. And I have pivoted, though. I will say that I'm like, towards the end of pack 2, if I've seen another color, like, you know what, time is just drying up and I'm seeing a lot of fire, I'm going to switch over. And it's come together for me. It's definitely making that adult pick and kind of taking the risk, but realizing what I was getting past. And one of the times I passed, I could have ended up with 3 Greenstone officers. Instead, I passed 2 of them because I was like, well, it's triple justice, I don't know. And then I'm like, you know what, justice feels open, I'm going to switch. And sure enough, it paid off for me. I don't know. Let's send over to you first, John. What do you think? What's your overall kind of draft approach?
Yeah, I don't think anything has really changed with my approach to the format, or to the drafting process anyway. I'm just ending up with so many more playables and just powerful cards for my deck. I don't know if I'm identifying my lane faster, or just the general card quality is better. Can't say for sure, but I think the power level of my decks since the format swap has just been much higher. And I've just I was going on a drafting spree for sure. Hadn't really been drafting a lot. The format was getting a little stale, and it reinvigorated me for a bit there for sure. I was getting a lot of games in. And I think I mentioned it basically earlier with the mono faction discussion. I do think that the mono faction kind of drafting strategy maybe changed a little bit, as far as really identifying that open color in pack 1, and then maybe forcing from pack 2 on, is maybe a new technique that some people do. We've talked to some people that really think forcing archetypes in Argent Depths is like a winning strategy, right? And I've seen I've seen these people put up results, so like I can't say it's wrong or anything. Like I think it's a legit strat, and I think it's something you can do here as well.
Nice. Well said indeed. Alex, what about you, buddy?
I just stick to my, my true formula of trying to stay open especially for the first several picks and seeing what color is open. Pretty much is a good way to look at any draft. But I've also noticed, and I've done this more than I've ever done before, because there's so many playables, I've gotten to like my pile at the end and I'm like, I can cut one of these colors. And then I've like just streamlined the deck, gone in. I thought I was 3 colors, but I went into just 2, and I had enough playables because there are a lot of playables, which I never usually do that. Usually if I'm drafting cards, I'm going to put them in the deck, or I want to put them in the deck. But yeah, there's
you still think you're 3 color literally when you drafted the last card, and then in deck construction you realize you were 2 color all along.
2 color all along, and like, oh, maybe I should have picked some other colors, darn, some different cards. But the deck ends up being still pretty good, so.
Yeah, and that's why I default back to my taking advantage of the fact that we can always see our deck as we're drafting. I know a lot of people have the default of they just keep everything in their deck and then they go in later and kind of make trims and stuff like that. But I think it really helps me when I'm on those close tiebreaker decisions, right? We have all those heuristics taking, for example, when I'm between 2 cards, I typically take either the removal or the cheaper cost card to help me make those tie breaks. And actively building my deck while I'm drafting has helped me a lot, because I can look and be like, oh, well, there's this good 2-drop, and let me see, okay, how many 2-drops do we have? Well, we have 8. Okay, well, is that 2-drop better than anything I have in my deck? Yes. Okay, cool, I'll take it. Oh no, I'm good with all my 2-drops. Okay, then I can take another card, and you kind of adjust yourself that way. And it's really helped me kind of clean up my decks and make sure, hey, well, there's this great card. Well, we already have, like we were talking about, who is very top heavy. So it's really easy to be like, oh yeah, we're going to take this great card. Oh, we're going to take this great card. And then look, and you're like, oh my gosh, I have as many 8-drops as I do 2-drops, So I think that's kind of the biggest thing, which I know I've been saying a lot lately, but it's just really helped. And it helps me make those decisions, especially in like the 3 and 4 drop slot as well. I think 4 drop slots for some reason here lately for me has been the most difficult to fill up. And that's helped me like, okay, well, there's this really good 5 drop, but we have no 4s. Okay, I'll take that. How many 3s do we have? And et cetera, et cetera. And it's helped a lot as well with time, because time has, if you're in Xenon's the big perpetrator, because you have cut ties, you have disappear, and you have snap are all cards that you really want to play. So, jamming 6 of those in your deck is definitely not the right answer. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Do you guys have any closing statements before we wrap this one up?
If you're going to play 6 drops, play 19 power.
Yeah. Just wanted to know if you guys are enjoying the format now more or less than you were a couple weeks ago. What do you think about just how you feeling about the swaps and the draft pack additions?
Like for me, just in general, it was kind of stale the way it was. So I'm all about the change because it's like a new format basically. So I like it.
What about you, Jedi?
Yeah, me too. I'm enjoying it. I think it's a new format. We're seeing the same cards, but they're playing out differently, and I really like that. So yeah, I've been enjoying it. I enjoyed it when we had the bot packs. It definitely added a cool twist to the format. And you just had to take it with a grain of salt when you got blown out by a busted deck. It is what it is, But sometimes you were the person with the busted deck, and that was fun. And then now that the format's starting to settle down and whatnot, the one salty thing I've gotten blown out the exact same way by this card twice, which is the Unforgiven or whatnot, the 5, 6, 7 cost ambusher with flying, that mills you for like, what is it, the top 10 cards or something preposterous like
I think
that.
it's like a random 5 units.
Oh, great. Awesome. Yeah. So that card, my opponent's played out. I'm like, oh, okay, this is cut tie. I have them on cut ties because it's a common, and there are very few things that cause you to leave 6 and 7 power open. And I'm like, okay, how can I play around it? Okay, well, we could play around it this way, or we can't play around it, so let's just swing. And then I swing, and then they play this 5/6 and just blow me out. And I'm just like, I've lost that way twice already. So that's my one little like gripe about the format, where I'm like, how could you do that to me? You have 2 cards. I'm just, and then it's weighted. So you see it, it's a rare, but you still see it a decent amount. So it's like,
Yes. I've seen an Unforgiven, I think, in all of my drafts, whether I'm picking them or passing them. Like, that guy shows up a lot.
Yeah. So that's it. Other than that, I'm having a great time. I think it's a ton of fun and I'm enjoying it. But all right, that's going to wrap up this section of Marine Topic. That's our first impressions of the format. We'll keep you guys posted on things as the format continues. Not sure how long we're going to stay in this format. Haven't heard anything about a new set yet. So we'll keep you posted. We'll probably hear something about this after Worlds or maybe even after holidays, because it is creeping up on that. So there's a good chance they're just going to take the rest of the holidays off, but we'll find out.
Fingers crossed for a spoiler during Worlds this weekend.
Oh, yeah, true. Something, right? Maybe even one of the, well, they're not going to do the community cards, but all right, sweet. So for our What's the Play this week, this one is an interesting theory crafting question, or I guess kind of interpretation. I'll break it down for us. Our opponent is on Combre. We are on Praxis, but we'll get to that in a moment. Their board state is a 1/5 Sentry, the Endurance and Warcry 1/5. They have 4 cards in hand, and then and 6 power. We have a 2/2 Pyromage. We have a 1/1 Deputy, Eager Deputy, and then we have a 6/5 Golem, Prism Golem. Now the 6/5 is overwhelmed because we put the +1 and overwhelm weapon from the Mark Maker on it. Of note, this is the biggest decision point. This is why I wanted to bring it on why I wanted to bring it on the show to ask you guys what you thought. So here's the thing. Like I said, we were Praxis, but because of the way our power worked out, we are still playing just straight fire influence, making our Prism Golem a 6/5 overwhelm. Our opponent has 6 power, so they have the option of playing something big. They have options for not for disappear, but they could snap, right? We have 2 time influence in our hand. We have 3 technically, and then a reality snap of our own. So the question here for you guys is, do you think that we go ahead and run out our time influence so we shrink our golem, but then we have access to reality snap, or do we just keep smashing in with this 6/5, forcing our opponent to come up with an answer and then play our power, risking the fact that we can't play the snap on turn? For me, I felt because they only had 1 unit in play, I couldn't imagine them playing something that would really influence the board too much. And if it did, we could always just not attack with the Prism Golem. But I like the fact that I wanted them to make the play first, and then we can go ahead and shrink our dude, especially with the fact that we had the ability to continue playing cards in that form. So I don't know. That's the path I took. I waited. I believe, if I'm being honest with you guys, I think the next turn they went ahead and like snapped or did something to answer our golem. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they did. And so then I just went ahead and snapped. But where are you guys at here? Would you have just gone ahead and shrunk the golem to have snap at the ready, reality snap at the ready to bounce 2 units, or nah? Sorry, my bad. Yeah, Alex, you could take it first. Sorry.
I would think I would have ridden that same line that you did and just ride the 6/5 for as long as I can. You're not really being threatened, and sure they're gonna get Warcry triggers, but 6 is a lot of damage to be taking every turn, and it's overwhelmed, so they can't even chump it effectively, really. I like that when you do end up playing your time, it's still a 4/3 overwhelm. Like, yeah, I think I would do the same thing. Just attack until it doesn't get through effectively anymore.
Now, if we had any other time spells, and actually no, to be honest with you, this is the we were talking about heavy influence earlier. This actually was a mono fire deck with time to splash for 2 reality snaps. That's exactly what this deck was. And I think an alchemist. I think I had an alchemist and 2 reality snaps were my time splash. Everything else was fire. That's how we got 6 fire influence with no issues. So with that, if we happen to have a time unit in our hand, would that change your thought process or no?
Maybe a little bit. I think I just like getting in with 6 as much as I can. That's a really, quick clock. And I do it with normal prism golems when they're not overwhelmed. Is like as long as I can in the game, as long as I'm not getting cracked back for more than what I'm dealing, I like staying aggressive with it.
Okay. Yep. Actually, I think they killed it with Alchemist. I think that's how they killed it, if I remember. I'm not sure. It's been a minute since then. I've done like 8 drafts since then. All right, sending it over to you, John. Where's your thought process on this? Because we definitely took it
with what you've got. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's definitely at a tempo loss, right? Like we still can't even just play one time source and play snap. So it was at a slight cost, but obviously I gave you some additional information that really another snap and an alchemist is the only other time we have. So where are you at?
I think you're going about this correctly. I think this is exactly what I would be doing here. The opponent's not giving you any reason to quickly work towards this reality snap, and your deck's not giving you a reason either. So yeah, I would go along this as well.
Sweet. Yeah, I just thought it was interesting, right? Because I definitely, I think I might have missed a power, maybe not. I don't know. Like I said, it's been too long now. I feel a little bad, but it was just interesting to see how long you kind of influenced Starve my considering, right? And yeah, I said it all. Everything else at this point is just fluff. It was just something that I thought was very interesting and wanted to bring it up, especially having the snap, because that's part of the snap, right? You get aggressive, and then when your opponent taps out to play their board, you bounce half their board and get in for more damage. But here, that is at a cost, essentially making that golem 6/5 into a 4/3. So
you have like a safety valve because you have your second time source already in your hand. Like you can cast the reality snap in 2 turns once you decide to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you'll have it in time for your opponent when they go a little wider on you, so I like just attacking here.
Sweet. Cool. All right, let us know in the comments or on Discord or on Twitch chat or whatever if you have a different thought process. But like I said, not the most complex thing. It was just kind of a theory that I think I would have liked to discuss, and I did, and you guys were great. Thanks for telling me. For a second there, John, I thought you were going to be like, well, I think you were absolutely wrong. But
I thought the same thing. That's funny.
No.
Sweet. All right, then. That will take us into our constructed corner for this week. And it is Worlds. And I got to say, I have to highlight both Collector and the Barbarian Camp for this sweet vision control list that they have come up with. It's nothing new as far as like the cards we're seeing here, but I've definitely liked this card, not including campaign cards. It is 51,750 Shiftstone. This is an expedition deck. I gotta admit, I took this deck from D3 to Masters over the course of this last week. It's a great deck. It's a lot of fun to play, and it does highlight 2 of the new cards from the most recent mini set or mini campaign, the Bastion Rising. So let's go into it. It is 4 From Beyond, 1 Damara Deft Saboteur, 4 Desert Alchemist, 4 Desert Marshal, 4 Petition, 4 Send an Agent, 4 Display of Vision, 4 Pearl Abbey Smuggler, 4 Diana Faith's Shield, 4 Know Thy Enemy, 4 Roland Iron Tyrant, 3 Fear Tracker, 4 Shenra Speaks, 2 Massive Greatsword, 6 Justice Sigil, 1 Shadow Sigil, 1 Time Sigil, 4 Argentport Silex, 1 Justice Symbol, 2 Seed of Mystery, 3 Seed of Progress, 3 Seed of Vengeance, 4 Xenon Silex, and then a market consisting of From Anguish, From Below, Purge Driver, Nahid's Distillation, and Combre Vow. And I gotta say, the deck is smooth. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it because 1, I get to play Roland, so you're always gonna win me over on that one. And 2, it runs Fear Tracker, which is limited all-star, so that's great. And I gotta say, Send an Agent, there's, if you listen to last week's show, you already know that card is extremely powerful. It's just clean removal in most cases, and also can hit relevant relics. But then Know Thy Enemy is just great. It's good against Yetis, it's good against low to the ground decks, and the fact that you just high roll adding to the board is just really great. The deck can play From Beyond early on to get rid of those aggressive plays or removal and clear the way for your Rollants, as well as late game being Naive that really makes the deck tick. Like that, playing that card and just resolving it and having it stick around is awesome. Redrawing your Fear Trackers and your Rollants and your Dianas buffed is great. The deck is great. It takes a little bit getting used to because you're really trying to play that attrition value. Display of Vision is well placed, being able to remove relics as well as getting rid of a bunch of X1s on the opponent's side of the board, or even ramp you to be able to play your Shenra Speaks a turn earlier is really great. Well built deck. Shout out to, once again, Collector for piling it really well, and the Barbarian Camp for putting it together. I think it's great. John, Alex, have either of you guys had a chance to play this deck at all or played against it?
I've seen people running it on ladder already. I've played against it. I haven't tried it out personally yet, but I love this. I love the construction. Like if I've built before the set came out, I have personal versions of a deck very much like this. I love all these card choices. Like, and then some of the meta calls here with like the cards you highlighted, like Send an Agent, Display of Vision, and Know the Enemy, and even Massive Greatsword and Shinra Speaks as well. Like Massive Greatsword being a 2 of, like you think it's massive as a 7/7, like you said, when it shuffles back with Naive. But like in the meta right now, people are playing like Siege Breakers, right, which lets you fetch a relic when you kill it. So like it's such a good meta call to only run like 2 copies, because you'll inevitably in a lot of matchups have ways to fetch them, and in other matchups maybe you just don't even care. But the whole game plan is solid. I love the updates from the new campaign here. One interesting note is, like you said, it's the Barbarian Camps team deck, it looks like, but I guess Stormblessed is running one different card in the market. It looks like Svetcha over Purge Driver, which is interesting. I wonder why that one card change.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, 3 of these guys are running the same deck, and if I had qualified, I think I'd probably be on something similar, because this has been a dominant archetype for Expedition, this TJS strategy, kind of built around Rollant. It's just been solid for so long, and I think this is the best version we've seen yet.
Yeah, a couple of things. Great market. Like, it's such, especially playing the deck, it's such a good market. Purge Driver hits opposing Rollant, hits Dianas, hits Naives, hits Mav, I think is the actual name, but whatever. I got stuck on the Naive, and I like it.
Maeve?
It's Maeve.
It's Maeve.
Yes.
I think Maeve is what the Direwolf people call her, but Naive. Purge Driver is great. Gives you 2 units with some upside, and you could shuffle it back in with Naive. I love the 1 cost from Below and from Anguish, so you could play your Smuggler and immediately play those cards if you need it. Killing things that are relevant 5 costs and greater is awesome. The fast speed relic removal as well, and the fact that it's so cheap means that if you get a Smuggler off of the Know Thy Enemy, you could still go to the market and play those cards. I love the Combre Vow to just clean up your influence later on. It's cheap, it's great. Yeah, it's a great, well-built deck. Shout out to them. And it's funny that you mentioned Stormblessed, because I actually came across them in ladder. They're running this deck in ladder as well on Throne, with some modifications, obviously, to accommodate the larger
Yeah, I was just on I was just on Warcry, and like featured there is a deck by Stormblessed that's the deck you're exactly talking about. It looks like they converted it to a Throne version, and they've posted it for people, so that's out there as well.
Yeah, that was good. So definitely shout out to all those great people at Barbarian Camp. and whatnot. One alibi I have from last week, thanks to the Discord, so I definitely encourage you guys to join the Discord, is D-Dub. We kind of downplayed Metallic Razorbeak last week on the show, and this is not exactly going to make the card like a completely reevaluation, but they did come up with a very solid point for it. D-Dub runs it in a variation of the Throne Room, right? Throne Room being the card that every time you ping your opponent, you give yourself a face Aegis, as well as the third time you get a Darakas, and the sixth time you get an island. And Metallic Razorbeak with the Berserk and Evasion allows you to ping twice in one turn to kind of ramp that out, as well as being able to give Berserk and Flying to Darakas to trigger the island. So there's some synergy there. So just wanted to give a shout out to D-Dub for posting the deck list in the Discord as well. If you're interested, if you are a Throne Room aficionado and want to get that list, you can check that out in the Discord. So shout out to D-Dub for doing that. And on that note, John, actually, I know you were into Throne Room at all. Does that kind of change your mind about Razorbeak at all, or anything like that, or something you want to try, or not really?
I mean, it's something I'd already thought about. I don't know. I'm already just kind of like, I never really was into the Grenadin Throne Room deck. I know that's like one of the versions. I have like a couple other decks I run Throne Room in. I don't know. I did think it was funny that D-Dub suggested, salvoing your own Metallic Razorbeak to get the Entomb effect. I thought that was a cheeky little usage of that. But if that's it's still I don't think that brings it to. I just don't. I'm just not like much of like a aggro player. I think it's just all it is. It's just not really my style. But hey, if D-Dub definitely is a specialist in that deck, and so if I guess if you're playing the Grenadin Throne Room deck, that sounds like it's an upgrade for that specific deck. So
yeah, no doubt. They beat me with it at some point. I don't know if it was this version or not, but I know I've lost to their Throne Room deck at least once, so probably more than that if I'm being honest. But yeah, that's going to do it. That's our constructed quarter this week. So it takes us into our closing statements. So we wrap it up. Of course, you can catch us on youtube.com/EternalJourney. We can catch the video version of this podcast, especially when we do our set reviews and whatnot, as well as other great post-production content. And then you can catch us live and hang out with us at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. And of course, the Discord. We just talked about it. Great conversations, great people in their community willing to help everyone with deck builds, with sealed pools, helping draft with those difficult picks and making cuts. That's the biggest thing. Definitely help each other make those last minute cuts, especially in this draft format. But yeah, the constructed side is definitely popping off with Bastion Rising, people playing all kinds of great decks and brewing. So definitely check that out. That is going to do it for us this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, as always, happy gaming.
Good luck in your draft queues, everyone.
No bye this week, John?
I know, John. What's up with John?
Bye.
So much for helping me not edit. Thanks, guys.